What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is It. It is a horror film that was directed by Andy Muschietti and is based on the 1986 novel of the same name written by author Stephen King. So it takes place in the town of Derry, Maine in the late 1980s where children are beginning to mysteriously disappear. The film primarily follows a group of 6 friends who call themselves the Losers Club who all begin experiencing some unexplainable and extremely unusual occurrences that have to do with a psycho clown. At first the Losers Club simply tried to ignore these horrifying occurrences, but eventually they decide that they need to further investigate in order to fully understand what they're experiencing and how to prevent others in the town from experiencing these horrors as well. And the rest of the film is spent with the losers as they attempt to uncover Derry's darkest secrets, but we also get a glimpse into the difficult home lives of some of these young kids. Okay, so It was easily one of my most anticipated films of the year. I was super excited before a trailer even dropped because I distinctly remember the 1990 film scaring the bejesus out of me as a young kid. I mean, there's not much scarier than a killer clown that haunts you day and night by showing you your greatest fears. When the trailers started being released, I think my excitement and anticipation grew even further because it looked like this new rebooted It franchise was taking things in a more modern direction while all the while still retaining the positive aspects from the original film. I gotta tell you guys though, man, this film really blew me away. I mean, I was expecting something really good, but I left the theater with not a good experience, but a great one. I mean, I just saw the film last night, so it's all still pretty fresh in my mind, but as of this moment, I legitimately believe that It is one of the best horror films ever made. For me, I think it may personally be my favorite horror film ever. It's right there with It Follows. I mean, we're still in real early days here in September, but as of now, It is definitely one of the best films of the year, and I think it's going to be extremely difficult for it to not make the top 10 of the year list for me. And I've told you guys before, I'm not a huge horror junkie. I like horror movies, but I'm very rarely blown away by them. But It, to me, is on a whole nother level than basically any horror movie I've seen in theaters for a long time. There's very few horror films that I watch in theaters and then feel like I need to exit the theater, turn around, and buy another ticket to watch it again. It is definitely one of those rare films that I think a ton of people are going to feel the urge to experience more than once because it's just that good. I loved every single thing about the direction of It, but I think most people want to be scared first and foremost. So is this film scary? Yes, absolutely. I think It excels in a number of different areas, but its primary focus in horror is something that it very much excels in. The imagery in this film is legitimately frightening. I think that the visuals in It are some of the best crafted horror visuals that I've ever seen from the genre. There's so many legitimately frightening things that you see from the monster over the course of the film that I found myself consistently scared with the insanely unsettling imagery I saw on screen. The monster tends to take the form of whatever will scare its victim the most, and it ends up taking a number of different forms, primarily Pennywise the clown, but every single form it takes is equally terrifying. I think that the visual experience that It offers is so frightening because it plays on the fears of the main characters and then subsequently plays on the fears of the viewer. This is definitely a brand of high quality psychological horror that I haven't seen in a long time. It was terrifying. What's also interesting is that It incorporates a lot of jump scares, but it somehow managed to find a way to make them feel impactful and earned even. It's not like they're telegraphed from a mile away and they just feel obnoxious. These are genuine scares that legitimately come out of nowhere just to reiterate the point that these characters are never safe from Pennywise the dancing clown. And just in general, this is a really well shot film. It's incredibly versatile and really does an amazing job composing the shots in a way that play on your innermost fears. It also does a really great job highlighting how the characters are dealing with the stress of their current predicament and also just their lives in the town of Derry in general. I think this is easily one of the best shot horror films I've ever seen, but it also combines those beautiful shots with a haunting score that's just so unsettling as well. But something that It does that many modern horror movies fail to do is to progress the main characters in a meaningful way and actually make you truly care about their well-being. I think that the casting department behind It did a brilliant job because the chemistry between these kids is off the charts. It definitely has a Stranger Things vibe to it, and not just because Mike from Stranger Things is in the group, but rather because of the banter and overall chemistry the friends have with one another. The banter between the losers is actually one of the clear bright spots of the film, and I think a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised when they find out just how funny this movie is. I think that if you had told me It was going to mix in a ton of humor, I would have been very skeptical, but it actually turned out to be very cleverly written and timed out. In other words, they don't just throw the kids into a terrifying situation and then have them start cracking jokes when Pennywise appears. When things are terrifying, they look and feel terrifying. The insertion of lighthearted banter primarily happens during the downtime or before the losers are about to do something crazy and enter a potentially frightening situation. This film is very self-aware and knows when to not overdo it. It pleasantly surprised me in that way. Let me also just say that I was a little skeptical coming in about Bill Skarsgård's interpretation of Pennywise. I was skeptical because it seemed to drastically differ from Tim Curry's performance, and I wasn't sure whether that would be a good thing or not. Well, let me just say this, the performances are very different. They're drastically different, in fact, but Bill Skarsgård absolutely nailed it. He knocked it out of the park. This version of Pennywise is very different from previous iterations of the character. He doesn't really have anything funny about him whatsoever. He's much more of a monster than Tim Curry's version because he never does anything overly silly. He's all about instilling fear in his victims, and he does so through intimidation. He doesn't tell jokes or do anything humorous. He's just scary as hell, and I actually thought that really worked well for this specific installment. So as we recap, I think that It is a film that should be seen by basically everyone who enjoys horror movies. I think that It does a number of things really well, especially scare you, and it's easily one of the best horror films to come out in a long time. As a whole, I thought it had haunting visuals and music, well-developed and charismatic characters, some very clever comedy mixed in, and a terrifying villain. And there was honestly nothing I didn't like about this film. I'm gonna give It a 10 out of 10, and definitely recommend that you go see this one in theaters ASAP if you enjoy horror movies in any way. This is an absolute must-see. So did you guys see It yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know whether you saw the original 1990 film or read the book. What are your thoughts on the story as a whole? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.